Welcome back to our morning coffee time for Wednesday. So already September the 9th. Days and nights are passing. How well are we spending our time? Okay, well, the sky is clear and relatively smoke-free here, which can't be said of much of the West Coast the last couple of days. We were spared excessive wind yesterday, and the smoke ended up somewhere else. But I saw some horrific pictures from around Washington and Oregon in particular, with skies so red at midday. It was hard to believe that somebody hadn't been playing around with the photo filters. Rather frightening and concerning sight. I hope people are well and that this too shall pass. So we lost our number one questioner this morning already. Eleanor's come and gone. So if other people have questions today, please pop them into the chat interface. I see something from Sumana, and now I see something from Douglas, so I can take that up. I don't have any news other than what I mentioned yesterday. We have a special event coming up towards the end of the month on Saturday and Sunday, September the 26th and 7th. We're going to have an annual little work party for friends in the gorge and near enough to the Hermitage. Our Portland friends can come out in small numbers and help the monks move and stack all the firewood we need, not just for this winter, but probably for next winter as well. So we've arranged a truck and a trailer, and Venerable Rakita's been working away on the log splitter that Holly and her partner have loaned us, as in previous years. And last night we got down into the 40s Fahrenheit for my Canadian friends. Yet another sign that summer's coming to a close and fall is on its way. And it won't be long until we'll have to fire up our wood stove, usually sometime first part of October. So I didn't get anything on our website yesterday. Hopefully today we can get something up for people to reference there. But I have a plan for safely gathering and doing a fun little project such as this for people that want to come help out. So look out for that and mark your calendar. It'll be at noon Saturday, noon to 2 on Saturday and noon to 2 on Sunday, the 26th and 27th this month. So, and it's quite fun. We'll have everything split, so and none of the pieces of wood are all that big, so almost anyone can help. And if we have enough people, we'll have a nice fire brigade style arrangement to kind of pitch the wood and stack the wood, and it usually goes quite quick. So, and then we can sit and enjoy a cup of tea or drink of water on the porch outside while the weather is nice, and visit a little bit in person. So I'm in the midst of selling my country home and 2 moves. Son now, me soon, I hope. And I'm so aware that I'm living as if I were setting the stage for a life to begin in the future. Advice. I see the tendency, but my capacity for using skillful means is shockingly low these days. Well, I think my primary advice is to realize what a dangerous and pernicious habit it is to be future oriented. Part of having a self includes existing in time and the liability of tanha, which orients itself towards this deluded notion that I'll be happy then. And the reality is we only ever live in the present moment. That's all we have. And so the ability not to retain some sense of the reality of the present moment, even if engaged in planning for the future, kind of opens up this kind of space and this liability to make less than perfect choices. And it leaves that crack that Mara needs to work his magic and conjure up suffering in our life. And it just nurtures that all too common orientation of longing for and imagining completion with something other than what is presently arisen. We're always imagining greener pastures. We're always imagining that the ending of certain challenges or burdens will bring us happiness and completion, will bring something that it can't. And that drift away from grounding oneself in well-being in the present moment is a very central and pernicious kind of habit that has to be checked. So skillful means are, of course, applying all of your regular practices that you're drawn to, that you know help bring one to balance and know strengthen the heart. Really connecting with how the return to the present moment and the simplicity of the present moment is, in some sense, a much truer refuge than anything that exists outside of that, past or future. And the practice of just bringing yourself back to the frame of whatever it is that you're engaged in, whatever it is you're feeling, whatever it is you're thinking, as presently arisen phenomena. Like that's the truth of it. So thoughts of the future are thoughts of the future. Anxiety about the future is an emotion presently arisen. Hopes for the future are emotions presently arisen. And It's not wrong to feel these things. It's not wrong to think about these things. It's not wrong to plan. Quite the opposite. There's a lot of value in taking care of life, taking care of what it is that we need to, but it can be done much more sort of strongly through mindfulness and awareness that is grounded in the present moment and absent the delusion that happiness lies anywhere outside of this skillful engagement with the mind in the present moment. And that, you can build some skillful means to help. Of course, any of our meditation practices that help bring one back to the well-being of the present moment and connect with the well-being of the present moment help immensely. But also like just learning to challenge that drift towards or away from taking refuge in the present moment. So you catch yourself procrastinating or delaying or projecting well-being in the future, just call the mind out, call those thoughts out as deluded, as a lie. Because it's never been and it never will be. You'll never find well-being in the future. It only happens in the present moment. In some abstract, objective thought, yes, we can experience well-being in the future if we play our cards right today in the present moment. But in reality, well-being only ever happens in the here and now. And so it's like challenging that delusion again and again. Part of the value of contemplations around aging, illness, and death, I think, can also be really skillful, because when you contemplate the reality that death may come at any moment through many different means, and that is the reality of the present moment, it shrinks that horizon line back. If you can inhabit the reality that today might be your last day, it at least shrinks the horizon back to today, or some fuzzy notion of a few hours to live. If you bring it back to the reality that death could come at any moment, then it brings you all the way back to inhabiting the present moment. And there's a couple very interesting suttas where the Buddha is talking with monks about how they contemplate death. And they all have these different horizons for how they contemplate when it is that they might die. And the Buddha calls most of them a little heedless and slack in their contemplation, except for the ones that are contemplating breathing in. I contemplate this might be my last breath, or eating a morsel of food. I contemplate this might be my last bite. Like, one only has that much time. One's only appropriately taking the reality of death seriously, you could say, or sincerely, when the horizon is shrunk back to that level of immediacy. And on some level, it's objectively true. We could die just that quickly. But I think the more important dimension of the teaching is it then becomes a teaching which really helps bring us back to fully grapple with establishing skillfulness and well-being in the present moment. And that's part of the beauty of the contemplation of death, is it just trashes that drift and that delusion that well-being is somewhere out there in the future with different conditions. So thanks for the question, Sumana, and I hope there's something of value in there, in that contemplation. I'm considering pursuing monastic ordination, but COVID-19 has put a hold on travel for some time. How should I practice? Will I wait and be patient? Well, the same way that you imagine you would practice if COVID-19 was solved and you could be a monastic. Making best use of the conditions that you have. You know, it's a delusion to think that being a monastic is going to solve all your problems. I heartily encourage exploring monasticism if you have faith that the support of monastic teachers and a monastic community would help, and for many it does. But we still have to do the work. So honor that motivation and put everything that you imagine you would put into practice in the monastery into your life as you can. And even in any monastery, conditions wax and wane in terms of how supportive they are. Sometimes communities are not in complete harmony, or sometimes there's adverse conditions. It's just like life anywhere on some level. I remember when I first arrived at the monastery I ordained at in Thailand, Wat Pananachat. At that time, they allowed the postulants, which they call pakaos in Thailand, so the 8 precept members of the community, which is the first stage of monastic training or acceptance into the monastic community there. You could be at the monastery for maybe just a few weeks sometimes before they would allow you to take your first step into ordination and become a white-robed 8 precept pakao, as they say in Thai. Outside of Thailand, we call them anagarikas. And at the time, the pakaos had alms bowls and walked alms, bindabat, as they call it in Thailand, with the monks every day. And the majority of our day was quite similar to the bhikkhus and the samaneras, the novices. So you have these 3 stages of monastic training. The white robe pakaos, the 10 precept novices or samaneras, who haven't yet taken the higher ordination of the bhikkhu precepts. And then you have the bhikkhus. And the tendency is to be in a hurry to become a bhikkhu. I mean, who wouldn't want the higher ordination or the full ordination? That's what you're there for. And I remember feeling at times just a surge of impatience and greed to become a monk. Sometimes for very selfish and worldly reasons. Probably the funniest was just to get out of white, like living in the forest, wearing white clothes in a tropical environment was a challenge for my laundry skills. And just to be into brown and wear the brown of the monks, I imagine would make my life so much easier. But also the the focus of the bhikkhus and the ability to practice with all of the precepts of the bhikkhu life. In some sense, the bhikkhus are the most committed and the most fully a member of the monastic community in some sense. It's a fairly hierarchical society, so the bhikkhus go first. Anyways, there's all kinds of impatience and reasons and a tendency to sort of think that life would be better once I was a novice. Life would be even better once I was a monk. And to kind of check that or go against that, I would oftentimes just reflect. You have an alms bowl, you have robes, you have a kuti or a hut in the forest. Both the monks and the laity respect you as a monastic and are kindly supporting you with the basic requisites so that you can study and practice as a monastic. And you participate in almost everything that the bhikkhus do. And, I used to just to check that sort of greed and desire to have the status of a bhikkhu. I would try to find ways to reflect, to check that or go against that. Because it could be so strong. And, so I sometimes just reflect, like, what's going to be different? You'll still have the four requisites. Essentially, you'll still have support by being able to live in monastic community and practice the same as a bhikkhu. Or another skillful means is I would reflect on mortality. Like I actually got quite sick with malaria, a very serious strain of malaria, even before I was a bhikkhu. So in the first couple of weeks I was at Wat Nanachat, I was very sick with malaria and could have died. It went undetected for a while, and it was a strain of malaria that can turn into cerebral malaria. So and once it goes to the brain, it becomes very serious. So it wasn't all that hard to imagine I could have another bout of something like that, or dengue fever, or some other tropical disease, or a tree could fall on me, and I might die before I become a bhikkhu. So all the more important to break that drift and that delusion that happiness exists somewhere outside of the present moment, and just bring oneself back to taking care of business today. We never get the conditions we would long for, and if we ever do, they never last as long as one might hope. We're always just making do with what is. And the ability to get on with it and put forth right effort, resolve unskillful tendencies of mind that are presently arisen, to nurture, strengthen, support, develop skillful states of mind that have arisen, and to do the things for the prevention of unskillful things, the increase in skillful things, to cultivate the mind of serenity and insight, and overcome suffering. It all comes down to this moment. With whatever supports we have, with whatever karma we have, with the way it is. And the crazy thing is when we do that work and train the heart, we find that the refuge of the present moment is quite enough. With the mind well developed and with serenity and insight, it's quite enough. It's everything you need. So I think I'll leave it at that for today. I see a few more highlights for me here, but we're kind of running out of time. So I'll just have to invite people to come back tomorrow. So sorry for that. All right, be well, friends. Have a good day. Hope to see you all tomorrow.